Hey, you know what? Sometimes the path of love does not travel straight into his heart. And unfortunately, sometimes you have to know how to get over a guy, even if it's just to make room for the next guy. Hey, this is Cavallo from datingadviceguru.com, and that's what we're talking about today. How to get over a guy. 17-ish things you can do right now. Hey, and before we switch on the good stuff, make sure you do the big three. Make sure you like and subscribe to the videos. Make sure you turn on the notifications down there so you get the indicator when it comes out again next week. And of course, leave me your questions and comments below. Look, I realize it's not the best situation to be in, wondering how to get over your ex, but it's important to know or else you could find yourself making some pretty painful mistakes later on. And if you don't just get over the past, stop reliving that past and move on, you're going to sabotage the next romance. There's usually one of a few situations that lead to a breakup. First thing is he breaks up with you. Second thing is you break up with him, or the third is you both agree that this just ain't working anymore. And usually it's one person who decides it's time to end the relationship. No matter what your situation is, I'm going to give you some of these fast and easy how to get over a guy tips. But you know what? You might want to get over him, but you also might not want to. Let's face it, romances are easier to get into than out of. You go through a whole ton of painful withdrawal symptoms when your relationship ends. You've got the heartache, right? The heartache and the heartbreak. How will this crying and sadness ever end? You've got lost promises. What might have happened if you two had stayed together? You got jealousy, seeing him on social media being happy and moving on with his life. Well, seemingly moving on, can be agonizing. Of course, then there's the anger. Hey, wasn't this guy supposed to be the one? What a jerk. There's a lot of out-of-control feelings that hit you in this situation. So once you've made the decision to disconnect and get over this guy, how do you actually do it? Well, get over him tip number one, don't dwell. The easiest and most destructive habit to get into is what I call the dwell in hell syndrome. You start to replay things in your head in a maddening spiral of anger and pain. If you get caught up in your thinking, what you're doing is you're riding the emotional rapids. Yep, just like doing whitewater rafting. You're reliving this high-power emotion that your brain is mistaking for a replacement for the love you once felt for him. But you know what? In a few months, you're going to be saying, why the heck was I so emotional over him? Who cares? Yeah, I've been there and I bought the t-shirt too. Remember, it will pass. Get over him tip number two, censor him out. Every time you see his face in your mind or you hear his voice or you're going to fall back into that dwell hole I was talking about. I want you to do something. Just yell out in your brain, gone. Just a big blast of gone in your thoughts. Not out loud, please. I don't want you scaring people on the street. Just see the word gone in big red letters, like on one of those rubber stamps they use for official documents. And then slam that door in your thoughts shut with a resounding boom. Now, it might sound like a clever mind game, but what I'm trying to get you to do here is you set up a reflex response that doesn't take any thought. Because once your aching heart starts to think about this guy and remember all the good times, you're going to find yourself in sadness central. Get over him tip number three, lock the door. This should probably be one of the first things you should do. You want to make sure you don't leave a whole lot of waffle room in your decision. So if you dumped him, you should be really clear on whether or not this relationship should continue. I mean, you broke it off, so you should be. And that means you can't entertain thoughts about getting back together again, right? When you're done, you're done. If you let a maybe into your mind, you're going to double or even triple how long it's going to take to get over him. If he dumped you, you still need to really be clear that this thing is over. If you leave that door open to restart the romance, you're not going to get over him. Now, it's perfectly fine to just set this intention to get back together with him later on, but you have to make sure there's a limitation and a boundary on that intention. Get over him tip number four, go easy on yourself. People just don't know how to be gentle with each other anymore, and this is especially true with ourselves, right? These days we're pushed far too hard and we're too hard on ourselves. Recognize that this loss is a pretty significant one, right? It's a big event in your life. Yes, it will probably slow you down a little bit as you heal. Yes, your friends will notice, and that's fine. They should be there for you. And yes, you're not going to be motivated. You're probably going to have some ups and downs. Just accept that there will be some adjustments to go through and just go easy on yourself. Next tip is take your time. It's going to take some time to undo all the hardwired chemistry in your body. Those love hormones literally imprint that guy's presence in every cell of your body. So you have to be willing to wait the time that it takes to get over him so that you don't try any of those shortcuts that, well, end up hurting you. Usually, if you rush your recovery, you're going to find yourself in a rebound relationship. Now, I'm going to have to skip forward here. Unfortunately, I can't cover every single tip that's in the article. I've got 17 of them after all. If you want them all, make sure to go to the site, datingadviceguru.com, to get them. But for now, let's pack this thing in. Tip number 7 is go ahead and grieve. The fact is that losing a relationship is a lot like losing a loved one. Well, actually, it is losing a loved one, right? So you have to treat it like a loss. This means that you're going to be going through some grieving. Let yourself mourn the loss. Go through all the steps of grief, the shock and denial, that state of disbelief and numbed feelings, pain and guilt, which leads to anger and bargaining, which leads to sadness, sometimes depression, and then there's an upward turn in here. This is where things start to turn around. Then there's reconstruction and working through everything, and acceptance and hope. And eventually, you're ready to get back out there again. Don't try to bypass these feelings because they'll always be there, waiting for you to finally recognize them. And eventually, the morning ends. And if you'll forgive the pun, a new morning begins. Tip number 8 is be patient. It's hard to sit still in your own discomfort, right? You want to just get on with things, get rid of this painful stuff. But emotional challenges have their own energy, and they also have their own timeline. There's an old saying, 9 women can't have a baby in a month. What that means is there are certain things that you can speed up and some things you definitely cannot hurry along. Next tip is get your girls on board. Your girlfriends are going to be irreplaceable as you go through this process of restoring your emotional strength. It helps to get them on board as your support for when you might run into a rough patch. And you will, you know that. What you need is someone you can call on when you have a low mood, a lonely Saturday night, a little too much wine, and maybe you're plotting out a doozy of a text to send him. You need a friend that can say, I'm going to talk you down from the ledge and keep you from doing something impulsive that you'll regret in the morning. The next tip is no BCs. If you've made up your mind to not let this guy back into your life, then you owe it to yourself to make this one vow. I swear, I solemnly swear, no booty calls. Sure, he might call you up one night. In a moment of weakness, you might answer the phone, and the next thing you know, he's on your doorstep smelling like whiskey, smoke, and desperation. If you have particularly good bedroom chemistry with this guy, you definitely need to watch out. Sometimes the sex can sucker you back into giving it another try, and that's not where this decision should come from. Ever. Remember, no booty calls. Next tip is make a list. This one works wonders if you do it, and it only takes a couple of minutes, so please do it. You absolutely need a list of all the negative stuff about this guy, and you need it on hand for when you might be tempted. Just create a note on your phone, use a note-taking app on your phone, and list everything that annoyed the heck out of you about this guy, or the drawbacks of the relationship, all the negative stuff. Whenever you find yourself dreaming about those first few weeks you guys were together, and you start thinking, oh, why not try it again? Just pull out that list and remember the time he got jealous and threw out your old photos from college, or the way he would argue with ESPN, or pick his earwax out, or whatever it was. You need something to help push you away from the relationship you're not in. Next tip is remember, you're in training. Remember, you're going to get better at this with each date, each relationship, each hookup, each breakup, or whatever that you go through in relationships. You get a little better. You're learning every day what you want in a relationship and what you want in a man. You're learning about yourself. You're improving your communication skills. While you might not want to admit it, you're getting better and better with every relationship that doesn't work out. So don't ever view your time in a relationship as a loss just because it ended. Remember, every relationship ends. Eventually, all of them do, no exceptions. So if we let go of this need for something to be permanent, we can find real love in relationships here. Next tip is, what about the lessons? Now, in keeping with all that training, you might want to remember what it is you did learn from that last relationship. Here's another great list for you to make. Write down all the things you learned about during this relationship. You learned about your confidence. You learned about your courage. You learned about your resilience. You learned about your emotions. You learned about your hopes and your fears. Chances are there's a ton of stuff you managed to acquire in the way of skills. Woman, come on. Celebrate that. These lessons and skills are going to make you invincible in the dating marketplace, and you're going to make it inevitable that you will find the one. Next tip is don't bounce. It's tempting, but don't just jump right out there and start dating guys to help you get over this last relationship. I mentioned rebounds as being a real risk for anyone who is fresh out of a relationship, and that's very true these days. It's almost too easy to jump right back into the singles pool, right? Just another swipe on your phone. One of the most common mistakes I see people getting into is not giving themselves enough time after a breakup to be alone. Both men and women are prone to this kind of behavior. Give yourself a chance to heal up. Don't worry, there'll be more out there. The next tip is never give up. I get a ton of emails and letters and voicemails from women who tell me that they're at the end of the rope. They're ready to give up dating completely. Now, I don't think that they're actually going to give up dating completely. I get that it's frustrating, but talk about giving up on love is just frustration venting, right? And you know what? Go ahead. Give up for a couple of days. Give up for a whole week if you have to, maybe even a month. But then let yourself really rest and recuperate. You're going to be ready to jump into the action again. You can't walk away from this. Just don't give up for good. I truly believe there's someone out there for everyone. And if the frustration really gets to you, that might be a sign that you're maybe looking for a little too much in your relationships. And then get ready to love again. That's my last tip for you. Ultimately, in the long run, you will forget about him. In the short term, you'll get up to a place where you feel the ache a little bit, but you're okay with it. And you start to realize that he might have been a big part of your life, but that's history now. Now you need to prepare for the right guy, the right man. He's out there and he's worth all this crazy dating stuff it takes to find him. And no, I'm not going to finish this video with the usual focus on yourself, get back out there cheerleading. You can't help but focus on yourself with everything I just talked about. And getting back out there, that'll happen all on its own. You don't need to push it. Just do it when you're ready. And when you're ready to focus on a relationship again, you're going to be ready to use what you've learned. Your heart will be stronger and you'll be ready to make a relationship that stands the test of time. And I've got a lot of the things you're going to need to do that. I've got great free resources for you. In fact, I've got a great free video and ebook you can get right now. Go on to the little link you see below me here. That's datingfire.com. Yeah, that's another one of my sites. datingfire.com/free. datingfire.com/free. Go get yourself a free video and book to get you back on the path to success with men in relationships. And before you go, don't forget, do those 3 things I need you to do. Go ahead and like and subscribe to the videos. Make sure you turn on the notifications so that you know when next week's comes out. And of course, leave me your questions and comments below, or go to the site and do that too. Hey, this is Carlos Cavallo from datingfire.com/free. Go get your free stuff. As always, live and love with passion.